right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. If you're watching this on X or YouTube, make sure you subscribe or follow the channel. Hit the notification button so that you never miss an episode like today's episode with the editorial director from the Chargers, Eric Smith. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing good, Doug. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Let's see, we'd like to get to know people a little bit before we jump into the game. How did you end up with the Chargers?
Yeah, good question. Let's see. I went to Arizona State for college. I got my journalism degree from there. Worked at a couple newspapers, small newspapers out of college, and eventually got lucky enough to work for the Minnesota Vikings for almost 7 years. And then a couple years ago in 2022, I came out here to join the Chargers and have been here the last couple of years. So this is my 10th season in the NFL, and I love it.
Nice change of weather from Minnesota to Southern California, I'd say.
Oh yeah. People ask me all the time if I miss the snow and all that. No, I do not. So I like taking my family to the beach and sunshine all the way.
I don't blame you. We packed up and left DC 10 years ago and are down on the coast of North Carolina where it's sunny most of the year. So I do not begrudge you that move. It's interesting, these two organizations, Eric. It feels like they're kind of in the same place, maybe on the same trajectory. Both got new reshapings of the organization last year, pretty much from the top down. Both made the playoffs in their first year with a new head coach. Both have superstar quarterbacks at the helm. I'm curious. I mean, you guys went from Brandon Staley essentially to Jim Harbaugh. I can't think of a bigger shift in culture and change than that. How has it been with Jim since he's been there?
It's been great. It's funny that you mentioned the word culture. That's always the first word that comes to mind for me about Jim and Joe Ortiz, the general manager who came over from the Ravens. They have just kind of flipped this organization around in a good way, and obviously we're heading in the right direction. They know the type of players they want. They identify them. They bring them in. And just the culture and just really just like the standard, I would say, that the day-to-day standard of, hey, this is how we're going to do things every day. This is what we have to do, what we must do in order to win. Coach Harbaugh had preached that since we got here day one, almost a year and a half ago. I would agree with what you said. Like, both teams seem like they're on the up and up. We're both coming off losses right now, so that makes Sunday's game pretty interesting. I think it's going to be a good one, but I think overall the Chargers are definitely headed in the right direction.
When I think of Harbaugh, I think of two things. I think of intensity and I think of running the ball. What is the intensity level of Harbaugh for those that have not been around him in person, such as myself? And is he still with Roman the run first guy that we think of from a couple of years ago?
Yeah, very intense, very intense. He's just a football guy through and through. He had a quote when I forget when he said it, but he's like, I want to play, I want to coach, and then I want to die. So like, it's a little odd, but that just kind of sums up how he feels about the game, how much he loves the game. I mean, he's all football all the time. He has brought that physical mentality, that physical style here. Obviously, Greg Roman was with him in San Francisco, and it's funny because you would think that's how they want the team to be built, and that in general like want the philosophy. But the first 4 games, it's been more pass happy, and I think it kind of leans more into Justin Herbert and his arm strength and his arm talent. I think right now we rank 3rd in the league in pass rate at about 63%. So that's been a little different. Like last year, it was a little bit more balanced. But this year, after taking Amari Hampton in the first round, it's been skewed more toward throwing the ball. So we'll see if that continues. Maybe that's just an early season trend. But at least for this year, it's been a little bit more pass happy than what maybe people expect from a Jim Harbaugh led team.
Now, generally, I think also of Harbaugh having mobile quarterbacks. I don't know that if Herbert's looked at that way, but he's got wheels and can use them. I wonder, are they asking him to use those wheels? Are they installing more design runs, RPOs for the play action game for him? And is it something that I mean, I know he's been hit like 26 times the last 2 games. So are they worried about that? Are they trying to scale that back at all? Or are they still, "This is how we're doing it, and this is what's going on?"
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're designed runs or called runs per se. It's more so if the play breaks down or you have a chance to run, don't be afraid to take advantage of that. Justin had a play last week against the Giants. I think it was 3rd and 19, where nobody was open, but he saw a lane and ran for 24 yards and got the first down. That's, I think, the type of plays they're looking for. They're not looking for him to run for 100 yards a game, because they want to protect him in that way for sure. But if there's a lane there, like you said, he's got the wheels. He showed that in college. He showed that at times in the NFL. It's just, if you need to reach into that bag of tricks to do so and scramble, then do it, because that's just another element that can help the offense.
Now, I know for the Commanders, they were excited they were able to get most all the coaching staff back that was here last year. I think about the defensive coordinator Minter there, who's got the defense humming. And I looked at the depth chart with frankly a bunch of guys I really am not even all that familiar with, but they're flying around. I believe second in defense right now, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly against the run, they've been very good. What is it about Minter? And the way he employs the defense, and how long do you think you'll be able to keep him?
Yeah, I'll answer the second part first. Probably not long, if I'm being honest. And I think Jim Harbaugh would probably tell you the same thing. It seems like Jesse Minter is on a quick trajectory to be an NFL head coach. Maybe it's not next year, maybe it's the year after, but he is just a fantastic coach. He's really a fantastic teacher, and you ask like what makes him so good. He keeps it simple while putting players in position to win, and that's what all coaches like try to do. But Jesse said last year, he's like, I don't try to overburden my players with all the answers, because then it becomes too much on the field. They're trying to think too much instead of just play. He's like, I give them what they need to know, and he does that in a very like clear and concise way, and then they go out and play free. You could ask pretty much every defensive player in the locker room, and they just rave about Jesse, just like his personality, his coaching style. There's been a couple times in the last year, season plus, where Derwin James has been asked, hey, what's the secret, to the defense? Why is the defense playing so well? And he'll kind of laugh and he'll be like, we have Jesse Minter. So I think that just sort of sums it up. He's a fantastic, coach, a great person. And yeah, hopefully we can keep him as long as possible, but I'm not so sure about that.
I did not realize that Navarro Bowman was on the staff. That's an interesting guy. I mean, many people don't know much more about linebackering than that guy. Is he one of the bigger guys on the staff?
Yeah. He's a great coach as well. I've had the chance to chat with him a couple of times. I think when Navarro joined Harbaugh's staff last year, it kind of did a couple things. One, like you mentioned, obviously it gives like a veteran, experienced player on the coaching staff that not just the linebackers, but kind of everyone can go to get advice on the day-to-day grind of the NFL. But he also played for Harbaugh, right? And he knows Harbaugh's style. And so especially the first year, and I'm sure a little bit this year too, if players have questions, or are unsure about, hey, what Jim's saying here, or why is Jim doing this? Bowman can be like, hey guys, this is what he did to us in San Francisco. That's just his style. Kind of be like a middleman, I guess, to help kind of bridge the gap. And players have talked about that too. I think Deion Henley, one of our starting linebackers, is obviously an ascending player, and Bowman has been a great part of his development. So just like, the entire defensive staff in general, Jesse, Navarro, Mike Elson, Steve Klinsko, all those guys are just a great bunch of coaches.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned Derwin James. That draft, the Commanders, then Redskins take Deron Payne. A lot of people in the fan base had wanted Derwin James. He went later. Both got second contracts with the teams. I'd be surprised if Deron gets a third contract here. Do you think Derwin will get a third contract there?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. As long as Jim Harbaugh is around, like nobody raves about Derwin James more than Jim Harbaugh. Earlier this year, he said he was the best safety he's ever seen. He changed that tune a week or so ago to the best defensive player he's ever seen. So I'm fairly certain about that.
He's seen a couple defensive players as well. The injury report for the Commanders this week looks like something out of a horror movie. I know you guys are dealing with it too. Frankly, the league's had a lot of weird kind of big time injuries, your game in particular the other day. What will the offensive line look like, do you think, come Sunday at 4:30?
Yeah, we'll find out. We can probably pencil in, Zion Johnson at left guard, Bradley Bozeman at center, and Trey Pipkins at right tackle. It's just the other two spots that are kind of up in the air right now. Mekhi Becton, starting right guard, he missed Week 4's game against the Giants as a concussion. He was back limited on Wednesday. We'll just have to kind of see, how that goes. But I think the big question comes at left tackle. Obviously, Joe Alt is going to be listed as doubtful. Harbaugh said he was doubtful to play. He's probably not going to play. He's got a sprained ankle. Do the Chargers go with Austin Deculus, who came in Sunday's game to play? If Mekhi comes back at right guard, do they put Jamari Sawyer at left tackle? They were working a bunch of different combinations in practice. So health is a big factor in determining how that's going to play out. But we'll kind of have to see as we get closer what the final lineup will be.
I love asking about my Bulldogs that are on other teams. How has Sawyer's been there?
Yeah, he put in a lot of work in the offseason. He lost, I think, about 35 pounds and kind of just transformed his body. He was really good as a rookie at left tackle back in 2022. He's moved more inside the guard the last couple of years. He's had ups and downs, but he's just a solid depth player. And if he needs to go in and play, he can definitely do so.
The other Bulldog obviously is Ladd McConkey. Feels like he's had a slow start. Is that on him, or is it because you finally gotten Quentin Johnson to kind of be the guy they thought he was going to be when they drafted him?
Yeah, I probably lean towards the second part of that, the latter part of that. Like Q's having a great year, and all the praise he's getting, all the it's just really just the way he's worked. I actually have a big feature out on Q today on Chargers.com, and just kind of looks at his first 4 games. This is, I think, what people have been waiting for, this consistency, this production. Because he said, he's like, listen, I didn't have the smoothest first couple of years in the league. There was criticism and all that. He had obviously some drops. But instead of, wilting from that, he just put his head down, kept working. And, I think now he's third in the league in yards. He's tied for third in touchdowns. Like he sort of turned it on. And as a result, Ladd's numbers are down a little bit, but I think teams are still paying plenty of attention to Ladd. He gets doubled all the time. I'm not worried about him. I talked to Ladd yesterday in the locker room. He said he had an off game Sunday against the Giants, had a couple drops, and it sounds like he's pretty motivated heading into Sunday.
It's interesting with Ladd. I watched a ton of him at Georgia, obviously. A dude that just seems to get open and certainly a zone finder, if you will. I wonder, the staff obviously drafted him for a reason. Have they been surprised at just how efficient he is in his route running?
I don't think so. I mean, the Chargers obviously traded up to get him in the second round last year, so they knew how good he was. I think he was a 34th pick, all of a borderline first round guy. One thing he does great, he runs great routes, as we know, and that just is so friendly to the quarterback, especially a guy like Justin Herbert, who can put the ball anywhere on the field. If Ladd can just get open for a fraction of a second, the ball is going to be there, right? So those two especially have had a great rapport.
You mentioned at the top of the show Marion Hampton, and obviously he was the big pick of the draft for the Chargers. Again, little slow start, maybe just finding his footing, but I mean, obviously against the Giants, he had a great game, and that is a not the easiest defense to run on. What have they seen out of Hampton as the games have kind of gone along?
Pretty much everything. Pretty much everything. I mean, he showed, power. He had that 3rd-and-1 run where he got hit behind the line and just carried a couple defenders for 18 yards.
That was crazy.
Yeah, he showed speed, on that 54-yard touchdown. Like, he broke away and it just ran away from the defense. The Chargers were very high on him coming into the draft, out of the draft. They were obviously thrilled to get him. A little bit of a slow start, just trying to find his rhythm. But Jim Harbaugh has said repeatedly the last, week or two, like that he's found that rhythm already, only 4 games in. And the Chargers are going to need him. Najee Harris is out for the year. No other running back has gotten a carry. Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal, they didn't get any carries on Sunday. So, I mean, Amarian only had 12, kind of given how the game went. The Chargers fell behind. But he was probably already the lead back heading into week 1. Najee goes down, and he's clearly the workhorse back right now. So, the Chargers are going to ride him and feed him the ball for sure.
It is such a strange week-to-week league in the NFL. I mean, I was looking at you guys had a tough start to the season, all in division, ran off all 3 of them, then see the Giants. Listen, you got me knocked out of my survivor, first of all, because I had picked the Chargers for sure. What was it about that Giants game that just had them before? Was it the injuries, or what had the coaches said about how good they were through 3 and then a hiccup against the Giants?
Yeah, it was sort of one of those games where, the team got off to a slow start. The Chargers get the ball first. They have a false start before the first snap. They have a drop on 3rd down. They punt it away 3 and out. The Giants are fired up, right? Jackson Dart's in there. They go on a touchdown drive. And for the first time all season, the Chargers don't score first. So they're trying to rally. Herbert, who's as good at protecting the ball as anyone, 2 interceptions. Both of them get returned inside, I think, the Chargers' 5-yard line. The Chargers had 14 penalties for 107 yards. It was just a combination of kind of everything. I think Derwin turned it as a complete team loss, and that's sort of what it was. But even still, the Chargers had the ball, I think 3 times in the 4th quarter to go down and either tie the game or take the lead, and they couldn't do it. So it wasn't like they got blown out. It was just a kind of a sloppy game, and they couldn't, overcome it late.
It's interesting. This is not something that would be asked a couple of years ago, but special teams have become so important with the new kickoff rule. Who is returning the kicks for the Chargers, and are they being aggressive with special teams? I know the Commanders are.
Yeah, usually it's Darius Davis, who's a phenomenal returner. He was an AFC All-Pro last year, but he's hurt right now. He did not play Sunday. So last week it was Kamani Vidal, a running back, a 2nd-year running back, and a rookie, Keandre Lambert-Smith. So a little bit of trying to adjust on the fly there. But, when Darius is in there, he's very aggressive. And I will say, if they kick to him, he's so good, teams have been kicking away from him of late. But overall, like, the Chargers have really revamped their special teams the last couple of years, especially in the years I've been here under Ryan Ficken. They were pretty poor for a while, and now they're probably one of the league's most consistent units.
Do you like the new kickoff rule?
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it takes some getting used to, I think. And, they're tweaking it every year, so you can't really get used to it. This year the touchback changed, so you're trying to learn on the fly. But, it's fine. It's fine.
It looks like no Terry McLaurin, no Noah Brown. Jaden, it looks like, will play. What does the secondary look like for the Chargers? And obviously a much easier Sunday without Noah Brown and Terry McLaurin out there.
Yeah, the Chargers have a good amount of depth in their secondary, right? So obviously Derwin, is the leader of that entire group. he's listed as a safety, but he'll play all over. The Chargers like to play three safeties a lot. Lohi Gilman will be in there quite a bit. Tony Jefferson and Elijah Molden kind of split snaps last week. Elijah was coming back from a hamstring, so we'll kind of see how that rotation goes. Cornerback wise, Tarheeb still is an ascending player, and then Donta Jackson is a veteran on the outside. Mm-hmm. Cam Hart is a young guy who seems to get better and better, and then probably a guy well, Ben St. Juste is a kind of a depth piece. He's been needed to play here and there, but overall just a solid, well-coached group. I mentioned Mentor and Clinksdale, that they have those guys ready to play every week.
Yes, and St. Juste got a bad rap here, but he probably should not be a starting outside corner. Having him as the depth guy is a lot nicer. He's got the length and size. I'm just not sure he's what you want at 1 or 2. You said he's more like 3 or 4, right?
Yeah.
I always wrap these up, Eric, like this. If Harbaugh came to you and said, "Hey, what's the key for a victory here against the Commanders?" You tell him the game plan is what?
He's coming to me to ask this?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things stand out right away. One, the Chargers got to protect better than they did last week and the last couple of weeks. They got to keep Herbert upright. They got to play cleaner football. I mentioned the 14 penalties that can't happen. We haven't talked about Jaden Daniels much. Sounds like he's going to be back. It's not like Jackson Dart made a ton of plays with his legs. He made enough. So if they can keep Daniels in the pocket, keep him one-dimensional, that's probably a key. And then just get back on track. That's something under Harbaugh. After a bad game, he usually has his team ready to go the following week, and that's sort of what I expect on Sunday.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If the Chargers not giving up more than 21 points in the game, or it's something close to that, I won't ask you for a score prediction, but what do you think the score looks like?
Yeah, most games honestly are mid-20s to low 20s. That's sort of where they all kind of end up. I don't think the Chargers have given up more than 21 in the game. I'm trying to rattle them off. They gave up 21 to the Chiefs, 9 to the Raiders, 21 to the Broncos, 20 to the Broncos, and then 21 to the Giants. So right about the same. If you can give up 20 points or less, the odds are you're probably going to win more than you don't. And then you just try to score, 24, 27, and try to win that way.
One last one before we get out of here. I'm curious what the home field advantage is like for the Chargers and SoFi. Are the Chargers fans coming out for the team this year, or what's that like? Because I know that the buzz kind of is it's a lot of corporate business goes through SoFi, but do the fans still come out?
Yeah, they do. Especially under Harbaugh, the last season plus, last year and this year, you see the market turn around, and if the team, hopefully keeps winning, I think that'll just keep improving.
Eric, I appreciate your time today, man. This was great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Anytime.
All right.